All right, so what I want to talk about in this video is the HTMR gun versus the Tacoma gun. And really what I want to focus on in this video is the design differences. The Tacoma gun, which is a great gun, is a dry blast gun. And when I designed the HTMR gun, I put in some extra effort to make it more suitable for a vapor blast application. So I want to cover that in this video. Now you're probably wondering, hey, which one works better? I am going to say that they are both comparable. And some of my customers have even said, hey, I think the HTMR gun works better. I think they're very comparable. And I know you want to see a blasting difference video. And I started working on that in my old garage. And what happened is the part I was working on, it just didn't turn out well, and I used masking tape to tape off some sections, and the tape was coming apart. So the footage sucks. I wasn't able to get good results, and you guys know I moved, so I couldn't redo it. I moved, and now my machine is actually down because the compressor back here, I don't have 220 out here. So maybe in the future I will go do a heads up, blasting difference or whatever. I tried to do it, but it didn't work out. So let's talk about the design differences, but I also get asked, hey, I already bought the Tacoma gun. Should I upgrade to your gun? And my answer is no. If you already have this gun, it's a great gun. Just run it. Unless you like buying more parts and tools, then sure, go ahead and buy one of these. Or if you have multiple cabinets. But anyway, that's a great gun, but the reason I came up with my own is because I wanted to put my own spin on it, put in a little different design differences or features, and the Tacoma gun was just hard to get for people. So that's why I designed my own gun. Okay, and if you're running a gun like this, upgrade it. Okay, I don't care if you go with the Tacoma gun or the HTMR gun, just upgrade it, spend the money, and you will see results, or it'll blast up to 2 times faster depending on, if you're consuming the same amount of CFM. So if you have one of these out of a retail machine, upgrade it. It's the best thing you can do for your machine without buying a new compressor or whatever to make it blast more efficiently. And definitely check out my site. There's tons of good reviews on this. People are extremely happy with it. All right, so let's talk about the gun differences here. Now, the Tacoma is really a dry blast gun, but then someone, Jeff from Axis, okay? He tried it in the wet blast, vapor blast, and he's like, dude, this thing's awesome. So then I gave it a try, and it's great, right? But there's a couple things that happen when this is used in a wet application. First being is this nozzle nut tends to seize, okay? And the reason for that is this is a powder-coated body, and the threads are raw, okay? So what happens is there's a little corrosion that happens here, and water and media get in here, and this thing gets freaking locked on there. And then this knurl is not sufficient to break it loose. You have to put channel locks on here or whatever to loosen it. So that's one thing that seizes. Another thing is, see how tight this clearance is in this nozzle? So media gets jammed in this clearance as well, and sometimes the nozzle gets frozen in here, and what I have to do is completely disassemble this. So I got to back this air jet out, and then I use the punch to tap this out, okay? And you can see, I haven't used this all that much, maybe a year of use or whatever, but you could see how, these guns just get nasty. All guns get nasty. Okay, so that's a very tight clearance in there, and this guy tends to get jammed up in there. What I've done in the past is I put grease on here, waterproof grease, and grease or anti-seize on the threads. So that's one way to help, but you do have to take this guy apart and clean it, lube it up, and put it back into service. So here's what I did with my gun that doesn't really have these problems. First of all, I went with a plastic nut, and the reason is this plastic has a low coefficient of friction. It doesn't absorb any water, and it doesn't corrode in here because it's plastic, right? So the plastic comes apart pretty easy. I mean, media gets in here and it gets a little crunchy. I mean, there's just no way around that. But you can see that this nozzle, there's no way this thing can get jammed in here, and it's really loose like this because there's a tapered fit on this nozzle nut. Okay, so you can see how it locks into the nut. Okay, aside from that, my part is anodized. So if you're familiar with anodizing, this whole part gets dunked, and it's an electrochemical process, and everything in here is anodized, and anodizing does a great job against corrosion protection. So that the fit between this is not going to get it won't seize up as much as this guy here, this arrangement. So that takes care of that. Okay, another thing, the seizing, right? So what happens when you seize it? You got to mount this guy in a vise, and guess what? There's no flats anywhere to mount this guy. So when you put it in a vise, it'll spin. And I actually saw a guy, his was so seized up, he put it in a vise, and when he was wrenching on this port snapped off. Now this is billet, but they are not, it's not one piece. He brazes this, or I don't know how these are fastened or whatever, but this is not a continuous one-piece billet part. So on my body, I have flats to mount it in a vise if you ever need to. I have flats on the nozzle nut, so you can put an adjustable wrench on here to tighten, loosen it. And you can see I have flats or hex on the air jet. This here, this is just a jam nut. So when you remove this jam nut, you run into another problem. How do you grab the air jet to remove it? You have to grab it with pliers, and you kind of gouge up these surfaces. So I made sure I had flats everywhere just in case you need to service the gun. And another thing, this air jet is adjustable. So this is a jam nut. You can position this thing further in and out, and I haven't really, I played with that, but I haven't really messed around with it too much to optimize it. Maybe there is an optimal setting. But what I did is I found out what works really well, and then it's a fixed position. So you screw it in, and that's it. No messing in and out with it or a jam nut. Now, of course, these parts are a little more expensive to machine because this is made from round stock, and it's put into another machine to put the flats on. So this is less expensive to machine. The knurl's still done on the lathe, but this guy has to get transferred over to a milling center. Okay, so my gun does cost a little more, okay, because of all these little features that I put into it. Okay, one other thing, the Tacoma gun and my gun both come with ceramic nozzles. I believe ceramic is the only option available for these guns, and these nozzles cost twice as much as mine. Okay, so if you are using fine media, no big deal. It won't burn up the nozzles all that fast, right? But if you're using aluminum oxide or some crazy heavy coarse grit, let's face it, ceramic is going to get burned up pretty quick. So you're going to be paying twice as much for the nozzles. So just keep that in mind. My nozzles are $8. Last time I checked, these are around 16. Now, I also have a boron carbide nozzle that's available in all sizes and up to 15 horse. So if you ever want to convert from ceramic to boron carbide, you simply buy a new jacket and the insert, screw it in, and you're going to get a nozzle that lasts 10 or 100 times longer than this guy. So that's an option that's available for mine, and I believe that I've never seen a boron carbide for the Tacoma gun. And also with boron carbide, you want the jacket to fully cover the nozzle, just like the China gun, because they are brittle, and you don't want to break $100 freaking nozzle. So, and the ceramic isn't as brittle as the boron carbide. So anyway, there's that information. Okay, let's talk about this media port barb fitting, the size. First of all, I put several barbs on the fittings. There's only a single barb on here, and it's kind of sharp. And what the Tacoma gun, what this happens over time, it's sharp and it chews up the hose. These do not chew up the hose, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4 barbs that hang on to the hose. Okay, yeah, you have to run a clamp, but it doesn't chew up the hose and you get a good seal. This seal is just fine. I just wanted to mention that I put a couple more barbs on my stuff. Okay, this is standard 1/2 inch, so is this. This guy here is kind of like a goofy size. I don't know if it's made so you can put a 1/2 inch on there, and a 1/2 inch is really tight, and you probably don't even need a clamp on here, to be honest, since it's a media suction hose. So that's that. You can also run a 5/8 hose. It's really loose, but you can clamp that down really tight, and then that allows you to run bigger fittings and more flow in a vapor blast application. For my gun, and I don't know what threads these are. There's no other size available here, so you're stuck using this guy. On mine, this is 1/2 inch NPT, which is a standard thread, and you can put in any fitting you want. Mine comes with 3/4, so you can see that's large for a lot of flow. Or if you're dry blasting, you can go to 5/8 barb, 1/2 inch barb, and this is a $5 fitting, and you can stick in whichever one you want. But I ship it with this installed and just tell you, hey, if you need something else, then go to a hardware store and buy it. Why is this important? Well, let me show you. So here's what I mean with fittings. If you're forced to run a 1/2 inch hose, then you have to use 1/2 inch fittings, right? So look at the ID here, and you'll have several fittings like this in the system. And here's the same version, 3/4, right? You have just a much larger path for flow. So 3/4 all the way throughout the system. And if you have 4 or 5 of these fittings, then a restriction is gonna occur. So that's why I went with the 3/4 high flow setup for the whole gun. Okay, so here's the thing. The 1/2 inch hose, the hole's big enough for good flow, right? The problem is downstream from the pump to the bulkhead through the cabinet, you're going to have several 1/2 inch fittings that are considerably smaller than this. So all those fittings lead to a restricted flow. I'd rather run 3/4 and 3/4 fittings all the way up to the gun, not reduce flow whatsoever. And especially when you get into big CFMs, like 10, 15 horse, why restrict the slurry? So that's one downside of this, is you have to run a 1/2 or 5/8 fittings throughout. I still get emails to this day, hey, how do I get the Tacoma gun? Tacoma does not have a website, or they do have a website, but it's not built. It'll have contact information. So the only way to get one of these is to place an order over the phone. You have to talk to a physical person, Mike or his wife, and you have to place an order. That is inconvenient for some people, and especially overseas. If you're in a different time zone, you're 8-12 hours out of sync. You'll never catch them on the phone, right? So what I did is, this is available on my website. A couple clicks, add it to your cart. It'll tell you how much it is to ship, and I ship every day, and I ship worldwide. I've shipped to 30 plus countries, and I ship DHL for international. It's a little more expensive than the post office, but you get the UK 3 days. Anywhere in Europe, it's 3 days to ship it, which is insane. From Chicago to Italy to UK, 3 days. Australia, it could take a week or two, depending on where you live. Now, the post office, and this was during COVID, I think last year, it was taking 1 to 2 months internationally, and they kept blaming COVID, and that might be true, but that was unacceptable to me, and it's unfair to my customers, right? So DHL is awesome. They are a very good company. They're very responsive. The customer service is great. I have a representative I can contact. So to me and to you guys, it's only fair to use a quality shipping service. I'm not going to use the post office because man, you can't, if you have a problem, you'll never get answers by walking in there. So anyway, that's the story of this gun and the few changes that I've made here. that I feel make it a better gun for vapor blasting, okay? You can order on my website. Shipping is quick, and I have tons of sizes: 3 horse, 5 horse, 7.5, 10, 15, anywhere from 12 CFM to 45 CFM, and in between you can build hybrids. I have you covered as terms of sizes, and you know, you order today, I ship the same day or tomorrow, and you get it in 2 to 3 days. Can't beat that. So anyway, that's the story of this. All right, so those are the design differences between the Tacoma and the HTMR gun, so you can see the differences. If you're interested in purchasing the HTMR gun, I have them in stock. They ship same day or next day. Link is in the upper right. I do ship worldwide, and I have tons of sizes available: ceramic, boron carbide. I have everyone covered from 3 horse to 15 horse and everywhere in between.